Something is happening over Britain right now that forecasters are watching with the kind of focused attention they reserve for situations that do not fit neatly into the standard playbook. Not one thing, several things, simultaneously. And when you line them all up against the backdrop of what has already been the most meteorologically extraordinary year in recent British history, the picture that emerges is one that raises questions the science is only beginning to find answers to. This is not about a single storm or a single heat wave. This is about a convergence of atmospheric signals developing over the British Isles. Right now, that is, in the most literal and precise sense of the word, strange. Start with what happened this weekend and why it matters more than the headline temperature numbers suggest. On the night of Saturday, June 21st, 2026, the summer solstice, something appeared in the skies over Britain that has been alarming and astonishing observers in equal measure. Noctilucent clouds, the rarest and most ethereal clouds in the entire atmosphere, were visible from multiple locations across the UK, glowing electric blue and silver against the darkening sky. Like and subscribe, because noctilucent clouds do not form in the troposphere where ordinary weather happens. They form at the edge of space itself, are in the mesosphere at altitudes between 76 and 85 kilometers above the Earth's surface, where temperatures must drop below minus 120 degrees Celsius to freeze the tiny traces of water vapor into the ice crystals that create these luminous formations. They are visible only in the weeks surrounding the summer solstice, only at latitudes between 45 and 80 degrees north, and only in the twilight hours after sunset or before dawn, when the sun sits just below the horizon but still illuminates those extreme high-altitude clouds while the sky below is dark. The first confirmed sighting of the 2026 noctilucent cloud season was reported from Denmark on May 22nd, earlier than in most recent years, and sightings over the UK have been accumulating through June in a pattern that skywatchers describe as unusually active. The significance of noctilucent clouds to the broader story developing over Britain right now is not primarily aesthetic. It is scientific. Research published by atmospheric scientists over the past decade has documented a troubling trend. Noctilucent clouds are being observed more frequently at lower latitudes than historical norms and with greater brightness and extent than records from previous generations showed. They were once so rare that in 19th century scientific literature, they were described as a phenomenon so infrequently seen that many observers doubted their own records. They are now being reported with regularity from locations as far south as southern England, the north of France, and Germany. The leading explanation offered by atmospheric researchers is that the increasing frequency of noctilucent cloud displays is linked to a rising concentration of water vapor in the mesosphere, which is itself associated with increasing methane concentrations in the lower atmosphere. Methane oxidizes in the upper atmosphere to produce water vapor. More methane means more water vapor at the edge of space. More water vapor at the edge of space means more noctilucent cloud formation. Like and subscribe, because when the most extreme boundaries of the Earth's atmosphere are responding visibly to changes in the composition of the gas layer below, the message is one that every person looking up at those beautiful blue-silver clouds should understand in full. But the noctilucent clouds are only the most visually dramatic of the strange signals currently developing over Britain. Bring the focus back down from the mesosphere to the troposphere, the layer of atmosphere where all of Britain's weather is made, and what you find is a pattern that has been causing genuine head-scratching among forecasters and climate scientists throughout the summer of 2026. The UK has now experienced the warmest meteorological spring in the instrumental record, with the Central England temperature series showing a mean spring temperature that beat the previous record set in 2025 by just 0.05 degrees Celsius, in itself showing an anomaly of plus 1.45 degrees Celsius above the long-term average. During that spring, the UK recorded a previously unheard of 4 heatwave days, a figure described explicitly in the historical record as unprecedented. And the last 30 years of data show spring temperatures in central England warming at a rate of plus 0.32 degrees Celsius per decade, a figure that sounds modest in isolation, but when compounded across decades represents a profound structural shift in what British springs are capable of delivering. Like and subscribe, because the number that should stop you cold is not the temperature anomaly for any single season. It is the trend behind it, because that trend is accelerating. Then came the June 2026 amber warning heatwave, and with it, something that the Met Office recorded with a mixture of scientific precision and what can only be described as meteorological disbelief. Radar operators monitoring the UK's network of Doppler weather radar on the days surrounding the peak heat noticed something appearing on their screens that initially looked like a cluster of localized showers northwest of London. Experienced operators examined the readings more closely and identified what they were actually seeing: swarms of flying ants, so dense and so vast that they were returning radar echoes indistinguishable from precipitation. This phenomenon, sometimes called flying ant, day in UK popular culture, is not new. It has been observed and documented by the Met Office on multiple occasions. But the scale of the 2026 event, the geographic extent of the radar returns, and the timing during what was already a period of record-setting heat made it one of the more remarkable examples of this phenomenon in recent years. Like and subscribe, because flying ants appear in their winged reproductive form when conditions hit a very specific combination of warm temperatures, low winds, and high humidity that triggers mass simultaneous emergence from underground colonies. The conditions that produced the June 2026 amber warning heatwave were, in that specific sense, biologically as well as meteorologically exceptional. There is another layer to what is developing over Britain right now that sits in the stratosphere, between the troposphere where weather happens and the mesosphere where noctilucent clouds form. The stratospheric polar vortex, a vast rotating system of cold air that circles the North Pole in winter and influences winter weather patterns across the Northern Hemisphere, has been behaving in ways that left forecasters unable to reach a clear consensus through the 2025 to 2026 winter and spring. The quasi-biennial oscillation, a separate atmospheric cycle governing high-altitude equatorial winds that alternates between westerly and easterly phases over a cycle of roughly 28 months, has been in a configuration that adds complexity to every extended range forecast for the UK. Met Office scientists have been explicit about the difficulty of pinpointing what combination of stratospheric and upper tropospheric forcings will dominate the UK's weather through the second half of 2026. Like and subscribe, because when the stratosphere, the upper troposphere, the North Atlantic sea surface temperatures, the jet stream, and the developing super El Nino in the Pacific are all simultaneously in configurations that interact with each other in ways the models cannot fully resolve, what you get is exactly the kind of summer the UK has been experiencing in 2026, one where confident extended forecasts have repeatedly been overtaken by reality at a rate that is higher than typical, and where the transitions between regimes have been faster and more extreme than the medium-range models anticipated. The jet stream itself deserves its own focused discussion as part of the strange picture now developing over Britain. Through the winter of 2025 to 2026, the Met Office documented the jet stream sitting persistently south of the UK, in a position that funneled successive Atlantic low-pressure systems directly onto British shores and produced what became one of the most relentlessly wet and stormy winters in recent memory. Northern Ireland saw its wettest January in 149 years. Parts of Devon, Cornwall, and Worcestershire recorded rain every single day for stretches of over 30 consecutive days. And then, in May 2026, that same jet stream shifted dramatically northward, allowing the high-pressure ridge that produced the record-breaking heat wave to establish itself over the country and hold temperatures at levels that broke the all-time UK May record twice at Kew Gardens in 48 hours. Then in June, the jet stream shifted again, back southward, producing the unsettled early June pattern, then northward again, producing the amber warning heat event, then back southward and westward again as the Atlantic breakdown arrived. Like and subscribe, because a jet stream that oscillates this violently between extremes within a single season is not behaving normally. It is exhibiting the kind of amplified variability that atmospheric scientists have been linking directly to the differential warming rates between the Arctic and the tropics, a pattern that becomes more pronounced as Arctic sea ice continues to decline and the temperature gradient that drives the jet stream stability continues to weaken. Perhaps the strangest element of what is developing over Britain right now is the one that is hardest to quantify but impossible to ignore: the acceleration of the unprecedented. The UK broke its all-time May temperature record in May 2026, not once, but twice in 48 hours, at the same site of Kew Gardens. Before that, the record had stood since 1922. The UK's warmest spring on record in 2025 was beaten by the 2026 spring by a margin so thin that the two values are statistically almost identical. The Central England temperature series, which is the longest instrumental temperature record in the world dating back to 1659, has now seen its warmest springs concentrated with extraordinary density in the last 5 years. The pace at which these benchmarks are being broken is not slowing. It is increasing. Like and subscribe, because the Country File and Weather Diary observers who have been logging UK temperatures and anomalies for decades are using language in their 2026 entries that they have not used before. Words like unprecedented density of records, an extreme heatwave anomaly peaking 29th of May with no modern parallel, and the observation that there is less than 0.06 degrees of separation between the mean spring temperatures of the last 3 years, which is itself described as very unusual in the historical record. The conspiracy theories that invariably emerge whenever the UK's weather becomes dramatically unusual are themselves part of the story of what is developing over Britain right now, following the cool and rainy early weeks of June 2026, as the weather whiplash from record heat to unsettled conditions produced the abrupt flip described by forecasters. Mentions of geoengineering theories on social media platforms doubled compared to the equivalent period of the previous year. Claims that cloud seeding, chemtrails, or deliberate weather manipulation were responsible for the UK's unusual summer pattern circulated widely. The BBC's Verify unit, which fact-checks viral claims, confirmed what the scientific community has stated, consistently and unambiguously. There is no evidence of any secret geoengineering program affecting UK weather, and the jet stream behavior that produces these dramatic transitions is fully explained by documented atmospheric dynamics. Like and subscribe, because the geoengineering narrative is not just factually wrong, it is actively harmful because it redirects public attention away from the genuine and documented scientific explanation for why British weather is becoming more extreme, which is the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere driving the changes in circulation patterns, jet stream behavior, and ocean temperatures that are reshaping UK climate in real time. The question that forecasters, climate scientists, and atmospheric researchers are genuinely grappling with as they watch everything developing over Britain right now is not whether what they are seeing is unusual. It clearly is. The question is whether the pace and pattern of what is being documented in 2026 represents a new phase in the UK's climate transition, one where the frequency of records, the violence of regime changes, the visibility of atmospheric signals from the mesosphere to the troposphere, and the convergence of multiple simultaneous anomalies point toward a system that has crossed some kind of threshold into genuinely new behavior. The 2026 noctilucent cloud season is unusually active. The spring was the warmest on record. The heat waves have been record-breaking. The weather flips have been dramatic. The jet stream has been volatile. The Super El Niño is forming in the Pacific. And above the British Isles on the longest night of the year, something electric and blue and impossibly thin is glowing at the edge of space, visible to the naked eye, forming from ice crystals at minus 120 degrees Celsius in the very outermost boundary of the atmosphere, reflecting sunlight that has traveled 93 million miles and bounced off clouds made of frozen water, vapor produced by methane emissions accumulating in an atmosphere that the Industrial Revolution began warming nearly 200 years ago. Like and subscribe because something strange is developing over Britain right now. It has been developing for decades, and it is now visible in ways it has never quite been visible before to anyone who takes the time to look up. There is one final element in the picture of what is developing over Britain right now that brings the story full circle from the edge of space back to the surface where people live. It is the water. The North Atlantic Sea, surface temperatures surrounding the British Isles have been running at anomalously warm levels throughout 2026, continuing a trend that began in 2023 when marine scientists first described the state of the North Atlantic as genuinely shocking. Warmer North Atlantic sea surface temperatures do multiple things simultaneously to the UK's weather. They supply additional moisture to passing weather systems, increasing rainfall potential. They reduce the temperature contrast between ocean and land that drives the UK's prevailing westerly winds, sometimes weakening the normal Atlantic airflow in ways that allow continental air masses to dominate for longer than expected. And they interact with the jet stream in ways that amplify both the warm and wet extremes, because a warmer Atlantic can sustain a heat ridge for longer when high pressure dominates, and can fuel more intense Atlantic storm systems when low pressure takes over. Like and subscribe, because the North Atlantic, sitting at record or near record temperatures, is not a peripheral observation. It is the oceanic engine room of British weather, and when that engine is running at an abnormal temperature, everything downstream of it reflects that abnormality. The strange picture developing over Britain right now, from the noctilucent clouds at 80 kilometers to the warm Atlantic at the surface, is not a collection of isolated curiosities. It is a coherent signature of an atmosphere and ocean system in transition, and Britain sits directly in the middle of it.